The first thing we need to do before squatting is find the proper squat stance. This is going to be very individual because each person has different mobility restrictions. You want to find a position that allows you to squat deep with little to no lumbar flexion. A good way to find your optimal position is to get down and practice kneeling squats. From each position, you'll want to squat back and view your form by either looking at a mirror or videotaping yourself to find the optimal position that allows you to squat back without noticing any or little lumbar flexion. Make sure to brace your core while doing this. If you're not sure how to brace your core, check out one of our other videos demonstrating how to properly activate and brace your core. Next, we're going to go over bar placement. Bar placement is going to be somewhere between your upper traps and your lower rear delts. Bar placement is going to be determined by what your goals are and any mobility restrictions you have. For someone that lacks ankle mobility, having the bar placed lower on your back is going to allow your torso to come forward more and allow you to have a more upright shin angle, requiring less ankle mobility. If you have a lot of ankle mobility, doing a high bar squat where the bar is higher on your traps may be more comfortable because it's going to allow your shins to come forward and it's going to allow you to have a more upright back and may be more comfortable for you to squat. Play around with bar placement and find what position works best for you and allows you to squat the deepest with proper form. Hand placement on the bar is going to be determined by shoulder mobility. Generally, you're going to want to get your hands as close as possible. This is going to create a lot of tension in your upper back. Which brings me to my next topic, lat engagement. You're going to want to retract and bring your shoulder blades down and back, just like you would on the bench press. You want to keep that position and you want to tuck your elbows down. This is going to help you engage your lats and keep your upper back very tight. You want to avoid allowing your elbows to come back, just like so, because under heavy load, people tend to push the bar and it can cause you to tip forward. The next topic we're going to talk about is the hip hinge. The hip hinge is the main movement pattern for the squat. You're going to start by pushing your hips back, and then you're going to drop your hips to the ground while bending your knees. We start the movement by moving our hips back because it alleviates a lot of pressure on the knees. It doesn't start the lift with our knees moving forward, it starts with our hips moving back. Our hips are our prime movers in the squat, especially at the top portion of the lift. So you want to start it by hinging backwards and down. All right. Now that we know how to grab the bar, get set up and squat, we need to talk about weight displacement on the foot. So, on this graph here, you're going to see a very poorly drawn photo of a foot. Thank God I didn't go to school for art. You want your weight distributed in the middle of your foot right here. So, from by where your big toe is to your pinky toe, all the way down to your heel, you want to keep your weight centered right here. Almost like, it's called the foot tripod. So in that middle of that triangle, that's where you want your weight to be centered. So as you're underneath the bar, play around with your feet. Pay attention to where the weight feels distributed. You don't want to squat down and feel the weight shift towards your toes or back towards your heel. Try to keep it in the center of your foot. If you have a hard time keeping the weight centered, it's either due to poor ankle mobility, which could be an issue, or could be poor hip mobility. Ways that you can correct it: if you have poor ankle mobility, you can do some different band-aid release work and stretches and mobilizations, which we'll go over in a future video. You can also get weightlifting shoes. Weightlifting shoes have an elevated heel. The elevated heel allows your ankles to kind of cheat the range of motion. It'll allow your knees to go farther forward during the squat, which will in turn allow your knees to go farther forward, allow you to stay more upright, and should help you prevent the weight shifting forward because you're running out of ankle mobility. Next, we're going to go over glute engagement and maintaining an arch in your foot. Start by gripping the floor with your toes. Then you're going to want to externally rotate your knees. You'll feel your glutes turn on and squat. By pushing our knees out, it's going to help us engage our glutes, engage our abductors, and help us have a sturdy spot for our foot to press off of. This is also going to help engage the muscles on the bottom of your foot, helping you maintain your arch, keeping your squat very safe without allowing your ankles to roll in or your knee going out of alignment. All right, the last thing we're going to talk about is squat depth. Now, very popular amongst most people, everyone's going to pretty much tell you that you need to squat to parallel. Parallel meaning that your knee is slightly above your hip. This is very individual. If you are not competing in powerlifting, you shouldn't have to go that deep. It would be ideal if you can. If you have no injuries, you should hopefully be able to get that far down into the squat. If not, you may need to work on your mobility. If you have an injury and you don't plan on competing, then maybe you shouldn't squat down that deep. There are different muscle activations depending on how low down you squat. Ideally, you want to work the muscle throughout its full range of motion. However, depending on if you're doing bodybuilding or different types of exercises or training, depending on what you're looking to build up, maybe you're looking to build up a weak spot in your lift, doing partial ranges of motion is a good way to work on that. Another good way to work on hitting depth if you are planning to either squat all the way down that far to below parallel or slightly above is to do box squats. Box squats have an amazing carryover to the squat. It allows you to perfect the form, it allows you to slow down, it allows you to make sure you're consistently hitting the same depth.